If you're a religious leader and you deliver sermons on a regular basis, then I hope this short video is helpful to you. I'm not necessarily a observant person when it comes to religion, but I do go to births, I go to weddings, I'll go to funerals where there are sermons. And to be honest, I often find the sermons disjointed and quite judgmental and definitely not engaging and leaving me with something insightful that I can apply to my lives. If that is the intention to deliver a meaningful message that is positive and people can take that with them, then I want to introduce you to two tools that you could use. Um, the first is the three-act structure. That's nothing new. Life is three acts: birth, life, death. The three-act structures has been used in Hollywood very successfully of set up confrontation and then resolution. And we see the three-act structure in so many narratives. And then also I want to show you how we apply AI. The first thing I had to find was something in the scriptures that was common to the as many mainstream religions as possible, and I found covenant with God, or God's covenant with Abram. Sorry, I'm not very well versed in religion, um, but I found that the covenant between God and Abraham was present in the Judeo Christian scriptures as well as Islam. So I thought I would use that as an example. So without further ado, let me share screen and show you what I've done. Right. So firstly, I instructed ChatGPT to prepare a sermon in a three-act structure regarding the covenant that God made with Abraham. And it's obliged. It said, here's a three-act structure. Let me just get that out the way. It said, here's a three-act sermon structure on the covenant God made with Abraham, designed to make the story engaging and insightful. And there it gave me Act 1 with references to Genesis, Act 2, Act 3. It gave me what are the key points. There's a reflection question and a closing reflection. I thought, well, great, but then I asked it to adapt the above to make it relevant to atheists as well. ChatGPT was a little more politically sensitive and said, here's an adaptation to speak to both religious and non-religious audiences. So I think this version focuses on the themes of trust, commitment, and legacy, universal values that are relevant regardless of religious belief, which I think ChatGPT put it a lot better than me. And gave us Act 1, Act 2, Act 3, a reflection question, a closing reflection. And it told me this version encourages listeners or the audience to reflect on their personal purpose, their resilience, and the legacy they wish to leave, making it believable to, well, yeah, they use the word believers and non-believers alike. I think everybody believes in something, but I think you get the gist of me trying to broaden it to a wider audience who perhaps aren't regular attendees for your congregation. So I said, that's great. Now adapt the story to make the legacy of less importance than your actual time alive. I wanted to make the sermon relevant so people get a message and they get motivated to do something now with their life. And it said, great, gave me Act 1, Act 2, Act 3, a reflection question, a closing reflection, and that was great. I then said, relate the above to overcoming the feeling of being on a treadmill at work. And then it said, here's the sermon structure that could relate to the feeling of being on a treadmill at work, emphasizing purpose, fulfillment, and presence, rather than only on goals or legacies. And it gave me the three acts and a closing reflection. And then I said, end by giving some insightful practical examples of how to reduce this treadmill effect. And then it gave me some examples, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and some reflection. I then said, now construct this into a sermon of 3 acts using the structure of a screenplay: setup, confrontation, and resolution. I took my instruction a bit too literally and set it out as we do set out screenplays, with a title and the whether it's an interior or exterior shot and where it is, and if it's day or night, and then fade in. So all the camera instructions were there. I didn't really need that, but that was great. So it did produce. And here you can see cut 2 bullet points of practical steps. So if there are going to be some supporting visuals, and end. I said then, change the tone to sound more empathetic and not a lecture. Remove numbering and make the sermon, apologies for the spelling error, exactly 8 minutes. GPT doesn't mind spelling errors. It corrected me and said, here's the revised sermon with a more empathetic tone, conversational style, rather than a lecture format, which will fit into 8 minutes. I think, thank you so much. I said, great, adapt the above to include. I wanted to be inclusive, include the stay-at-home parent and the job seeker. I mean, we're in a very changing job market at the time, and it did that for me. Okay. And I said, great. Now add the value of bonding and bridging social capital. Bonding social capital are people that are close to us, our family, our close friends, people we see every day. And bridging social capital are people who kind of know who we are. We don't see them very often. So it gave me that revised sermon, still in that format. And I then asked it to remove the screenplay structure and reference to visuals, producing a layout that is easy to read and deliver. Okay, and here's the sermon formatted in a straightforward layout that's easy to read and deliver without reference to visuals or screenplay structure, which is what I need. And here it is. Here's my sermon, my 8-minute sermon. And this version is structured clearly for easy delivery, focusing on the main points and encouraging engagement and reflection among the audience. So there you have it. Now, obviously, you need to introduce things that are relevant to what's happening. If it's a wedding, it's different relevance, to a funeral, to a birth, and also your own experience. But it's just, so you want to include that in the narrative to make it more personable, more relatable, but don't go off on a tangent and then expect to come back to the story again, the narrative. Once you break from the narrative, it's very difficult for people to pick it up. And okay, that's where you left off to go and tell this little side story. So the narrative that you include, your personal knowledge, and which now you need to inject into the sermon, must be part of the sermon and not an adjunct. Okay, so it needs to flow in a narrative so that people are more engaged. And hopefully when I go and experience my next sermon, I'll find a message that I can walk away with to help me through life.